Do you think the Russian thing is a lot more serious than we're all led on to believe?
What do you know? What do I know? You know.
But you think so?
They look what they did. Look what they have the power to do. They didn't just stop. Like, why would they have just stopped after the election? If they already had the power, the power doesn't end with the election.
But what was supposedly proven that they did? What did they do exactly, supposedly?
That they have people in Russia that are just full-time, like, bullshit writers that went so far as to orchestrate scenarios on American soil.
Oh, okay.
They orchestrated things.
Okay, and that was proven, that part?
Yeah. Radiolab, they talked to the people that were involved.
Oh, wow.
Don't you remember? You didn't listen to this?
I remember the claim that
they
happened, but I didn't know
the people, and they were like, yeah, they called me, they told me to do this, I went there at this time and met this person, and they had costumes for us, and...
I knew certain things were proven, but I didn't know it went to that point.
Yeah, man, and they went all the way, and they fucking did it, and it was just because they wanted to make a huge splash on social media.
Okay.
And so, let me just say this. Like, I'm making a really strong argument for the Russian thing, and I do really feel like it could be a possibility, although I don't know if I 100% believe it. But I bring up the point because I feel like regardless of who's responsible for this happening, these sorts of things are designed to be repeatedly placed in front of you to keep you invested in this mentally. That, like, you're being distracted repeatedly, and they know, people know that this gets people's attention. And for whatever reason, which I think would be interesting to analyze, people get upset about this shit, like this whole Trump stuff. I don't know why it gets us so riled up, but it gets people very riled up. And I very much fear that people capitalize on getting riled people up, getting people riled up. I feel like that's a great way to take control of people.
Yeah, I'm sure people do that.
And I worry vehemently about that happening to the general public.
What do you think is the end game? Like, do you think Russia is in a way trying to take over the United States, or do you think Russia and the United States are trying to work together to do a specific something?
Well, I think, again, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, and maybe it is like a New World Order type, I can continue on with my conspiracy rhetoric, but I do feel like it doesn't make sense to talk about certain people in terms of their national affiliation.
Do you think so? Do you think they're working together?
I feel like
they're working for themselves.
Yeah.
They're not trying to take over they're trying to, not take over for countries. I think that's passe. You don't just go in countries.
That's what I say.
You take over, where it matters to you, influence and money and, power, That's basically, what else you can keep getting, you know?
Okay, but you think they're, the U.S. and Russia are doing that?
Not the U.S.
No, I think people are doing that.
Like Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and...
Right.
People yet nameless. What's that?
Deal. I can't do it.
Oh, so you don't think it's the majority of the government is involved in this?
No.
You think only specific players are?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously...
They might all be part of the government.
Right.
It's that's just...
Right, but it's not the whole government.
Right.
You would think it's a minority in the government?
I would say that I think that there are people the hyper wealthy, right? Like
the elite ones?
The elite hyper wealthy people.
Okay.
Their power and influence must be so tremendous. And that if they're even working together in small groups,
it's enough power.
It's insanity, right? And those people are kind of lining everything up from their high viewpoint down. And I feel like they're capitalizing on it,
Yeah.
And their wealth, is such that, it's so, their power is so much theirs that there are not it's not country versus country.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't belong to, they're greater than countries.
Did you see that Joe Rogan podcast with that lawyer guy?
Yes.
Recently?
He reminded me of all this.
I think he kind of got a little deranged towards the end, but in the beginning, he was saying something crazy that 500 people or something contribute 50% of the donations to presidential candidates.
Yeah.
Something insane like that. Holy crap.
Yeah. Oh, that guy. Yeah, that shit was fucking insane.
Yeah.
I'm like, how?
But that's a reality too. And that got me thinking about this again,
And that's a problem too, because I think, I don't know, those kind of people have too many hands in too many things,
Sure.
So, I don't know, you can't really, not necessarily that they're evil, but they're self-interested,
Definitely.
Like everybody else is.
Yeah. But
it seems to propagate that too, just system-wise, you know, like, you can't even you can't not do that
within the confines of a system that works this way.
because it's like it's forcing you to walk like a duck. You know what I mean? If you want to be a duck, and it's like eventually you start believing you're a duck and you're walking like a duck and you're ducking.
Yeah,
It's like,
and Lawrence Lessig makes that like kind of commentary too on the whole situation, where he says that like they come to view like their success as politicians with like getting funding, you know, and that's like becomes their real occupation is to like be fundraisers all the time.
And then that's like how you keep up. Yeah, then it's like you'll do the government thing on the side, you know.
Yeah, but your main
everything else is just racking up money. It's like your like social stock.
Yeah, but that is like the almost epitome of corruption, you know. Like, what else could you even call that?
Do you think they're doing it in a like stereotypical I want to take over more and more for myself kind of thing, or do you think they're just trying to, they're not trying to directly do something bad to people or like abuse people, but inherently in what they have the power to do, they kind of, it's like collateral damage, you know? But do you think it's like an active evil?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think this is an important question, and I always ask it about a lot of things that I'm looking at, like kind of like the causality. And a lot of the times, I am willing to. I think more often than not, if you're asking me this question, I tend to say that people just become victims of like the system they're in.
Yeah,
you know, where it's like they're not nefarious; they're usually ignorant, naive, or something like that. Yeah, that's usually the way I think about it. But I think there is a type of person in the world that is like competitive to degrees that we probably don't even comprehend, you know, that would be willing to like for them to try and go the distance and like really truly have it all, you know.
Well, you're saying what about that? What about that person?
People like that exist. I do think they're in the minority of the general population.
But they own the majority.
What's that?
The minority own the majority. The swing of things.
What do you mean?
Like they're powerful. They got like, they're doing shit.
The minority owns the majority.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is another thing I was going to bring up. So,
but even that is an active evil. It is like neglectful, and I would say it is bad, you know. But you're saying, so you don't think anybody's like actively trying to hurt people? It's more like you're saying it's more like they don't care that they hurt people?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know if that is the majority of people. I think there are people like that, and then obviously there's probably like a spectrum of motivations and things like that. But I also think that if you think about again caste systems and social mobility, right? I think that I think there's a lot to be said about breeding in such that, like, if my parents are politicians, if they have a certain way of life and a worldview and practices and blah, 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 like, I'm going to inherit that in some way. Even if I try to reject it, which I might not out of hand try to reject it if my parents convince me I'm going to inherit an empire if I play my cards right, you know, like, then that becomes part of the cultural experience of that subgroup of people there. And like they become rulers and rulers of a quality that might not be good. And so like for those people, I guess too, like they're the victims of fate. But is it evil? Yeah, I think so. Because like if we believe in a fundamental good, then you can't say that your ignorance like affects your relationship to that good too much. Maybe a little bit, but you get what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. You're still evil, whether you're like, it's like, you know, I'm traveling south, but I think I'm heading north. It's like, well, you're actually, you know, it's an honest mistake. You're 180 degrees in the wrong direction. You didn't know, but you're still going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I guess that's another debate we can have about the nature of goodness and like, is it a, you know, but that's an old debate. But anyway, sorry to drone on about this. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, so that's the other group. And then I do feel like there's probably a degree of power corrupting people. Like naturally, like as you come in contact with power, you transform, you know?
Yeah.
And so what you become as a result of your receiving power
As a monster.
I think often it is, you know?
I think the system now, what it does, it just skews the numbers to like monster levels. I think just in general, like no matter what, there's going to be like a normal pecking order that like comes out and there winds up being the leader or something. So we have a small tribe that lives together. Like a pecking order will be established, but the numbers aren't high enough to where corruption can be like this crazy, like what it's become today, you know, like the system doesn't allow for that.
Right.
Like the current system allows for that and it funnels that shit to the top, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with more people is more like anonymity and more, you know, less likely the chances that you'll be kind of punished socially like before it gets too bad. You know, there's more of a checks and balances in like a small village kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even then, like that power isn't that great because like you can only rise to a certain level. And I think humans, you know, unfortunately weren't meant for this kind of like global scale. You know, our like normal ways of existing aren't made for like this kind of like scale of magnitude. Like we should be living in like small kind of things. Like our reach is like way beyond, like it's been beyond for a long time, but now it's like it's gotten even crazier with like the instant shit, you know, like instant communication is just like it's a good thing, but you know it's everything's a double-edged sword, you know. That's like what comes of it. And even, you know, before then, obviously, and even with like there's still massive empires and stuff like that before then,
but even was that faulty? You know, were those empires faulty?
Yeah, to a degree, but it's like it just keeps on, like technology just keeps helping to like make it, you can make it worse now, you know, like there's a higher level of corruption you can attain, you know, like bigger numbers, more influence kind of thing.
I think it has to do with like the available resources, right? Because I think what you're saying about like being in a small village makes a lot of sense, right? And like that's like kind of the cap though. It's like there's a limit to the resources. So it's like you can only become so powerful because there's only so much you have control over. But like for a person with unlimited power today, it's like your access to like anything you want at any time, and it's like it's unbelievable that you can what you can do now, because the whole like world, like you said, has been conquered. But I feel like we can't, the system for its corruption is like complete and like sort of in stasis, you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
No.
So like everything is in motion, but everything is like connected, or there's enough connection within the system that like it's not deteriorating or degenerating under its own weight. It's like a continual system that keeps going. And like I feel like even if you remove like a dark part of it, you know, it's like when you rip that thing away, it's like it doesn't come out clean like a part in a machine. It comes out like you're ripping like the pancreas out of an animal or something like that. And so we can't, like you could do that and then like everything would crumble and then reform again into something else. But yeah, you gotta be surgical, I think, instead of...
I think there's just too many. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like what I guess how you're saying. If you cut off the head now, you know, it'd have to spawn to something else. But it would, I think it would still grow the same way, and up until a point, you know, it'll be okay. And then if it gets to like the mass influence thing, you know, like once it gets to here again, it'll just happen again.
Right.
But it hasn't been this way. Like this has been a very short time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even like 1,000 years ago, you know, that was like crazy, but it wasn't like to these levels, you know what I mean? It still wasn't to these levels.
Yeah.
Well, it's like civilizations existed for a long time.
If you think about I was just looking at. No, I won't change. I won't bring this up now.
Instant karma videos.
um,
That's what I was doing.
like the compression of time, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the time scale that things happen on. We could see it going like right, and it's like. I guess maybe it's wrong to call it compression of time, right? Because I think time is staying the same, maybe, but human advancement is compressing.
I think it's weird. Like you were saying something like that. Our brains aren't prepared to take on what we've created.
Yeah.
But in a sense, like I think that makes sense in a way. But at the same time, why did we make it then? It's like we are meant for this in a way because we did it, you know. But then, you know what I mean? It seems like
I think it happened. I think
it's a good argument.
Well, it's like we are and we aren't in a way.
I think there are these mutations that happen, but it's just like there were so many new mutations that led to more new mutations that it kind of just like it grew into like a weird deformed arm.
You think it's
like
more
it
unintended?
works? Yeah, I feel it's a bit. You know, maybe the aliens gave us technology. I don't know. But it's a big, like, there's been very big leaps in, like, these last years, you know? And I just think like, even the internet, you know, was...
It's funny how...
It's just crazy how everything feels, like, way more connected now. Like, there's like, we created, like, another domain of influence, like, the social world that didn't really exist to this scale, that, you know? Like, there's this whole, like, realm of influence that it's a virtual realm, like, literally. You know, we can consider it real life, but it's really another realm. And it's like, they conquer that shit. Like, that's where the new flags are, you know? These influencers.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
It's like when, you know, what happened to fucking, you know, the Americas, like, literally, Spain and Portugal got there first, and they just fucking split the whole thing in half. They're like, you get east of here and you get west from here. It's like, that's what happens in the social realm. People, like, got the influence quick, and it's like, boom. It's like, now you have this massive web, you know? Control the grid, bro. I am the grid.
You were saying about that guy you were mentioned before. Remember the guy you were talking about?
Alan Moore?
Yeah. So he would say, like, the nature of reality is not material.
No. He would say that it is.
Okay.
But I think he would say that spirit
is not material?
Is not material, but is part of our reality.
But, like, what is spirit?
Listen to more Alan Moore to find
Yeah. I mean, I could give my own definition of that.
Yeah, what do you think spirit is?
But this is not Alan. I don't know what Alan Moore would consider this, but, like, here's one way I've thought about it recently, right? So it's like, you go running and you're passing all these trees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all like whatever, like oak trees or whatever kind of tree they are, or even various types of trees, right? And it's like every time you see one, it's like, that's a tree, that's a tree, that's a tree. You know it's a tree every time, even though it's a different tree every time. What you're recognizing is the spirit of the tree, right? You can look at the tree as an individual, but you could also see the spirit of its treeness, okay? So if you think about that quality that, like, is beneath the reality, it never exists, but it's always there.
The pattern?
The pattern itself, that, like, yes. But that's only, like, one static way of looking at it. Like, I believe spirit is not just the pattern standing still. I believe the pattern is, like, changing. And spirit is all of the patterns of all things, like, moving together and changing and evolving and interacting. And that is, like, an unseen essence that, like, is beneath, like, the physical reality.
That sounds like the most physical thing ever, though.
But yet you never see it or never touch it.
But you are it.
And yeah, it includes you too.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah.
I got Alan Watts.
So that's how I've come to think about spirit.
I think that makes sense. But it doesn't mean, like, those processes, however that's getting accomplished in your mind, like, that could be physical. Like, with whatever projects that, you know? Yeah, I feel like, but that's not that it has to be, but I think, like, if something is not physical, then, like, what is it?
Mental.
Yeah, but the mental's
still physical.
Yeah.
It's just like going
Why do
through
you
all
say
these
that?
bleeps and bloops.
It seems like it's a projection of the physical. You know, like the physical is you plug these two wires together, then boom, the screen turns on.
Right.
Know? So, but like the wires are making the screen turn on.
The wires are making the screen turn on.
Yeah, there's still
And
wires.
in your metaphor, the screen is the mental?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm not saying that there couldn't be something that isn't physical, but how could it not be? Like, I'm saying that's a real question. Like, what would it be then?
Well,
Because if you say mental, is like, what do you mean mental?
okay. A pattern. A pattern is not a physical thing. A pattern is an abstract concept. So it has no physical basis in reality.
It doesn't, but it has. Your ability to conceptualize that is physical.
See, I think you have it backwards when you say you plug in the TV and the screen goes on. Or you plug in the cables and
Right.
the screen goes on. Like, I understand that metaphor, but I'm making the argument now that, like, the mental precedes the physical.
Yeah, but how could you make that claim? Or why would you think that?
Because underneath all physical reality is a pattern that defines it. It has a spirit beneath itself. I guess maybe when I say beneath, it makes it sound like...
Right, but that's something you're conceptualizing. And I think that could be true.
Right.
But it's something that comes to be, even though it doesn't come to be in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like those thoughts, like you're having those thoughts in your head.
Right.
And you're
Like it's a physical electrical like charge going around.
Right, like your idea of like what you're seeing that can't see is things plugged in, you know?
But when you're saying that the whole brain is like things plugged in, right? But like your brain is like one of the most sophisticated like pieces of creation in the universe.
It's still like zeros and ones at the end. Even not zeros and ones.
Well,
But there's still things moving.
It's amazingly complex. Yes, it's amazing. And I think that even if it was just like that, somehow, it still would be amazing.
Right.
Yeah, it's still crazy, but I feel like I'm with Gus on this. I feel like it's
But that's
still,
not missing something. Go ahead.
I mean, let Jeff speak.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like deep down it is all like a physical thing, and we're just kind of putting like some charm behind it, you know, like adding like sexy spirit to it. You know? Ooh, sexy spirit, but it's like no, it's all like chain reaction and shit, and you know, like switches flipping. You know, obviously very complex, as we all know.
So why does the brain do that then?
I don't know, man. That's what we're trying to figure out. I thought.
But then how come like you can leave out in your theory, like you can leave out something like that?
Leave out what?
Like why? If you're making the argument, right, that like the brain is just like a causal, I don't know, mutation in.
Like, we're not supposed to think this far ahead, you know.
Okay.
Like we burrowed very far into the cave, and now it's like
right.
Oh,
but then, like, why is evolution like pushing us further down that path?
it's a random thing. You know?
This whole time it's been random. Then how come in all of evolution, like,
it's random and adaptive, you know.
Okay, so if it's adaptive, right? So how is thinking?
But
more
things
about
die.
that?
Like things that evolved eventually die and don't survive anymore. You know, just because it evolved once doesn't mean we got the fucking thing going. It doesn't mean that we can evolve and always be the best. It's like
Right.
But what does that mean? Anyway?
Look,
how does that refute the point, though?
All right. So what you're saying is that all right. It's this argument that what consciousness is experiencing is just a byproduct of physical processes.
Yes.
And anything metaphysical,
If that's thoughts in your head that ultimately trace down to physical.
right?
Yeah.
But the metaphysical has substance. The metaphysical is not just a figment. Like there is there is substance to it.
Not literally.
I thought literally.
I mean literally.
Literally, yes, because your thoughts are literal in a way. In that way, yes.
And they're based on language, right?
Yeah, and they're based on the power being on. Ultimately, that's like the biggest point, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't know. I guess I'll have to come back to this, but
what were you saying, though?
I really disagree. But I just feel like, okay, so
Maybe I'm missing something.
well, I'm trying to trace your argument back here
Okay.
because if you're saying that it's just a byproduct. Now you could say, all right, consciousness is a byproduct of evolutionary processes. Consciousness is an accident of evolutionary changes or whatever. So evolution is surely driving like your justification for the mind's existence, right?
Even if there was no evolution, if it just the first one was like that for some reason.
Right.
Hold on, I think I changed my mind. All right, how about this? How about this for a theory?
Okay.
Wait, let me finish. Let me finish. Because then I'm gonna forget. But I do want to hear yours too.
Okay, so if we have this.
Okay, so it was through evolution. That's a yes.
All right,
Okay.
so this brain. All right, but I like that you're doing that. We'll take evolution out of it. This
Okay.
brain that is in the form of what we have.
Okay.
It's like you hook it all up, and it creates a picture on the screen, just like you're saying.
Right.
Right. Once you get everything wired up, it creates a picture on the screen.
I don't know where that energy is coming from or how it comes to be, but okay.
Right. And I guess in your but that's the problem. We can't take it out because I guess in like this model, right, it's just there was the Big Bang. It's a fatalist argument where it was like all of the physical forces were set in motion. Then you have at some point the existence of a mind that does this. And one of the things it just happens to do is present us with an image, or not an image, but an awareness of reality.
Yeah, and what's missing? What's wrong with that?
And an awareness that we're experiencing reality. That I'm saying that things have a spirit.
Okay.
Okay? And underneath that is you can... All right, so the mental domain exists. The mental plane exists.
Okay.
And things work there as, I guess, different sort of informational things, patterns, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a physical place, but it's as real as a physical place.
It's not on its face a physical place.
It's not a physical place, but you can't you have to think about.
Okay, and how does that refute that it's ultimately coming from a physical place? So, I agree that like it's mentally and kind of elusive, and I can't say like electric one is me thinking about my mom, you know?
Right.
But all the plugs in chemistry is creating those elusive things.
Right.
But you're saying that's not the case.
What I'm saying is that the force that created
the elusive thoughts,
the makeup of reality itself, right? The being that made up the organisms that made up the everything.
Okay.
To result in this brain was created by like a mental being.
You're saying it was created by a mental being?
Yeah.
But why do you think that?
Because I want to.
So you're not disagreeing that what I'm saying is true. You're saying that behind that, a mental being intervened.
Intervened, exactly. Or
gave it life.
Right.
Or is it like what is being plugged into?
Yes. That's my argument. Yeah, so I feel like that comes before like the physical phenomenon.
Right. So I don't know I'm not saying like I think we're not disagreeing maybe ultimately then because I don't know what it's plugged into.
Right.
Or where is that energy coming from.
Right.
But I would assume whatever that energy is physical as well. Like I don't know how to trace back to the things to the source, you know? Like the idea of like source, I don't know how to wrap my head around that. I don't think people generally know how to. Maybe somebody knows how to.
Right.
Because you can always be like, well, where does that come from? Where does that come from? And then when somebody will say, well, that's not how it works.
Right.
But then I don't understand that, you know, so.
Yeah. But I think we did a good job of like, you know, going back far enough. Yeah. And I guess it's like, again, it's like you have to concede like that things are in motion, right? Like things are not fixed at a single point and things don't happen like drawn in hard boundaries, you know? So
sorry, go ahead.
That's why like I feel like all we can do is look at like the flow of a pattern, you know?
So by what? So you believe what you were saying because you want to? That's the only reason?
Yes. As of now. But I'm trying to brainwash myself. So go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, that's because of the magic shit. I was saying, okay, so there's like the physical, or maybe I was thinking consciousness is kind of like the DNA, kind of.
Okay.
Like that's just like the run code, and then like consciousness is kind of like this byproduct, but it's still a thing, you know, it's a physical thing. But it also, like, it co-evolves with, like, the physical being. So there's, like, you could have an evolution of consciousness, you know.
I agree, and I've always felt that consciousness is evolving for sure.
Yeah,
I feel like
think about it,
it's
you know?
not the same at all, and I think it's going to change continually. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like as a connection with the physical, right? But that's why I feel like consciousness, like as we have it, is like a mental gateway, you know. And so it's like
I think it's like the consciousness kind of makes the pathways in your brains. It reinforces like itself, and then that's like passed down, you know. Because you'll have the same features as like your parents, and that's the same mental pathways. Just kind of overlap them and like see what happens, you know.
Well, it's like the trees, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's patterns all the way down.
Yeah, it is.
And I was thinking, like, the problem is I think our concepts hit a wall at a certain point, because you can say, well, like, what comes before that? What does that mean? Somebody would say, you know, I don't know, like, fire is made up of these things, and you can always be like, well, what are those made up of? What are those made up of? And what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And what does it mean even? Like, you know, you can just, I think at a certain point our brains just, we don't have the ability to understand the concepts that you need to understand life, I think.
I know nothing about quantum physics, but I was thinking. But let me just say something real quick. Like, I had this idea about the mental plane as like a kind of meditative revelation, which I explained to Jeff. Like, I meditated. I asked my subconscious a question. I meditated on it, and like the answer it returned like had to do with this like this mental like plane.
Okay.
And so like that's why I'm like defending it, because I wanna put it forward to you and defend it as much as I can to see like if there's really anything to it, you know.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a mental plane,
but the kind of like you're talking about like the limits of concepts, right? And I was like, physics in itself is a concept.
Yes.
But it happens to be a concept that extends endlessly in all directions.
It's like a fundamental way of understanding. It's like a pillar of understanding.
It is. But I was thinking, I was like, but is it not also...
But it could be flawed too, or missing things, you know?
Exactly. An incomplete idea where it's like, okay, you think you're containing everything in your input data, but you're not, you know? Or, I mean, even if you have...
Well, they know they're not, but...
Right.
Yeah, but they're still like... A lot of it is like, it's probably like this, you know?
Yeah. But like, even like the quantum physics thing aside, it's like, what if there's just a dimension of interrelations that are not of the physical variety that follow a different set of what we would call physics, right? But I feel like that would only trap it into being like a physics again.
Yeah, because I feel like, aside from what we were talking about, like if something isn't physical, then what is it?
Metaphysical.
But like, what is that? Like, what? No, but like.
Yeah, but we don't have a good idea of that.
What is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It, like, what is it?
Is ineffable. I don't know. But like, that's when I thought about it though, and I was like, okay, well, like, what do I know about the way?
Yeah, you're it. That's right.
Yeah, but I still don't get it.
I feel like in the mental, like we do know about it, you know, it's just, we don't, the problem, and this is why I push back so hard against like that kind of like emergent consciousness idea, is like, we have a whole like understanding of mentality, right? But we do not like trust it in the way that we trust the physical. Mm-hmm. So it's like, maybe what we need to do is just try and take like a more honest look at our mental life. And like give our mental life more credit, and then instead of being like, oh, these are just like clouds, like weird patches of distortion in an otherwise like perfectly tuned sensing machine. Like, you know, we have to kind of look at them as their own things and try to understand like what the mental realm holds, like what are its principles. You know, how does it work really in the way that a physicist would take the time and experiment with the physical world, right? You have to become like a sort of mental scientist and study your own mind, but you have one, right? So why can't you study it?
That's what drugs are for.
Yeah, no, and I agree, dude. And I agree 110%.
I think that mental life is so weird. Yeah, I feel like I'm thinking about that more, especially after so many years of thinking about mind stuff. I don't know, like the things I think or like my anxiety is all so bizarre. You know?
It is, yeah. And very unique, you know?
Yeah.
It's all pretty silly.
And I think it is like definitely, I think like the consciousness is like pressed up against, like it's like poured over the shape of reality, and it conforms to it and responds to it. You know, it's like it definitely has a relationship with reality.
Like I wonder, like what is going on, you know, and what would that even mean? You know,
what I'm like proposing.
No, I'm just saying in general. Like I wonder what is the case of like life. What is happening? You know.
And I guess like I would ask you, it's like, why can't you answer that question?
I'm trying. I don't know.
What's the deal with life, yo?
And also, like, why
are we alive?
Why are there aliens? Why aren't we the aliens? Like, why don't we call ourselves? You automatically assume like we're the humans and that's the aliens. Like that, like right. Some weird different thing.
It's weird because the universe doesn't need us to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, the universe would be just fine as rocks and like elements. You know.
But maybe it wouldn't be. It wouldn't feel anything if it didn't have a consciousness.
So you think consciousness manifested into like patterns and blossom from there? The consciousness of the universe could travel between dimensions, and it saw the patterns of life, you know, carbon-based life, I guess, you know. Because does a plant have a consciousness, really? Or like a very simple, like the first evolution of like some sort of thing that led to like plant life or whatever. You know, it's a very basic thing. Like conscious could like shoot itself into it and try to patch through to the physical realm via that. But that's almost like a rebirth, so you don't remember your previous life. Yeah. So you think, is that like a reincarnation thing at that point? If you believe in that? Because then it's just like consciousness flowing in and out of different beings, you know? Or does it just dip you in like the holy water almost when you're born, and that gives you like your own consciousness that grows from there like a chia pet? Yeah. And it's not connected to the main tree anymore.
Maybe it's like,
or do you have to find your roots back to the tree so you can fully experience consciousness in the physical world?
Yeah.
I'm glad the holidays are almost over.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been over. I guess this is like the last hurrah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What days off do you have?
Only Tuesday.
You don't have Monday off?
No, but I can leave at 3, supposedly.
I got Monday off.
Oh, nice.
I'm so sweet. That's 2 4-day like weekends in a row. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is so nice.
I used all my days up. I gave myself like 2 long weekends. And all
I remember you had a little vacation.
Yeah, you flirted a lot.
That's alright. You used it well, right? You had a lot of fun.
That's what it's for. You know, if you got it, use it.
I like myself giving super long weekends.
It's definitely a nice treat.
Yeah. I think it's hard to come back though. I once told some guy, I'm like, it's hard to come back. He's like, yeah, it is.
That's why I never leave.
That was a funny story.
The winter is just starting actually, because technically it started December like 21st, right?
Yeah.
It just started.
It's not been too bad. The snow was a surprise this morning. I was kind of
it hasn't been too terrible so far.
I'm worried it won't be. I mean, I'm worried it won't get cold.
Why is that? Because of global warming thing?
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, man, if it's not gonna get cold, you know, I want things to like work out for me, but you know, I'm not gonna complain if it's like.
I'd rather be warm. Fuck you.
Yeah. Okay. It's like if we could get it to be like just like 65 all the time.
That's what we're doing. Consciousness is evolving.
I don't know what level of polluting we need for that. Like what kind of like balance. We just get a flat 65 year round. I think that would be cool. You know, deviations here and there, of course, but 65 is good.
I feel like, but if global warming is going to become a huge problem, by the time we're almost dead, it would probably be really bad, or supposedly from a few things I've heard.
I think our children are fucked. That's what's the.
Yeah, so like at least we'll be dead. So that's
That's what they say too.
Very nice.
I'm trying to give you hope. I'm kidding.
I think about that too. I'm like, I'll probably still like make it to like old. The Earth won't be like too destroyed. I was like, I always don't have that. One of them smart people figure it out. I fucking really hope. Because I can't design my way out of this problem.
Maybe you could, Jeff. Maybe you could.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not thinking about it. That's my wife's calling. Fix the planet.
What do they do with the garbage currently? So they take it to a landfill and then do what?
Mm-hmm.
Sits in a landfill.
Forever? Like I heard they bury it, but is that true? Do you know?
Yeah. And then it decomposes after like 1,000 years.
Is that bad?
I mean,
you can build houses next to it, apparently.
What's that?
You can build houses next to it.
Yeah, just like down here at Brumella, right?
I've stood on it. It's squishy.
Yeah, it's a big pile of garbage. I mean, it's not good. It's not good for the soil. If there's like, I guess they are supposed to clean out all the plastic and shit, but I don't know. I'm assuming it's just not good because, yeah, it's like those materials don't break down for a very long time, So it's like...
That's what all the dirt's for.
Yeah. But in the past, like, you'd grow some corn and you'd have all this fucking refuse from the corn. You'd put it in a big pile and then it was, like, good for the soil. You could put it back in the soil as fertilizer. But this shit ain't fertilizer. This is, like, super, all kinds of random garbage. And that's not to say anything about, like, the other strange, like, contaminants.
Corn.
Like heavy metal and did you know Mobius created heavy metal?
I found out from that documentary.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Him and like 3 other
heavy
whatever the fuck.
Right, it was a French magazine. But so that shit, like,
that blew my mind.
That doesn't break down, a lot of those like batteries and acid.
Yeah. How are you supposed to throw out batteries?
You're supposed to take them to a proper facility. I guess you got to go to the recycling center.
Have you ever done that?
Have I ever done
that?
Yeah. No, I've always just throwing them in the trash.
I thought you cared about the environment.
I don't. I just know how we're fucking it up. I do care about the environment. It's not that I don't.
I've never thrown out batteries properly.
And I'm concerned. But
you know what I do usually? I leave them somewhere. So I don't want to throw it in the wrong place.
It's such a nice way to sidestep your moral obligation.
Yeah, I have dead batteries that I know that's the dead battery spot. Just like a random spot.
Damn, dude. Yeah. It's like a murder victim.
I mean that I work too, as a goof, things that I don't want, I just leave it in the break room.
You did that with the book. You're disturbed, man.
And there's no cameras in there, right?
I don't think so now.
It's completely random.
It would be a funny thing, if it would be like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. If you were to get caught and have to explain yourself, it would never make any sense.
It's nothing bad, but I had little pumpkins that I didn't want anymore because it wasn't the season. In fact, I never wanted them, but they were okay, And then I just left them in the break room. I think after a few days they were gone.
Yeah.
That solves itself.
I hung up. They gave me I ordered food from Mr. Shu a while back, and they gave me a little calendar. It was Asian ones that you open, and it has the difference, what animal you are in the Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was this from a Chinese restaurant?
Yeah. Well, they do sushi, so Japanese.
Okay.
They have Chinese food too, but they do Japanese food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they gave me one of those, and it was kind of cool. So it was little chickens, and then just a calendar. And I was gonna hang that up at the break room.
Right.
And they wanted to kind of hang it up, kind of crooked and shitty, just for fun. But as I was doing it, somebody walked in. I was like, oh fuck! So I had to do it normal. So I'm just I'm just putting up calendar,
Uh-huh.
So I just left it at that. But it ruined my plan.
Did it stay up? Is it still hanging?
Yeah, it's still up there. Yeah.
It is useful having a calendar then.
Yeah.
If your boss comes and complains to you about your lack of sociability, you can be like, "But I hung that calendar up. I decorated the break room."
Yeah, that's a talking point. Icebreaker. What day is it? Check the calendar.
Learn more about Chinese culture.
Should we go eat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can.